We exceeded the vote. We exceeded.
Pat, excuse me. I'm just being told that there's no volume on the stream.
Thanks, Lene.
Welcome.
Rob, can you fix that?
Yeah, Lene, I was just noticing that too. I think it's okay now. There we go. Yep, we're okay now. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, I'll start again. So basically, I'm going to just tell the board members that the areas that we exceeded in, and I'll start, and I won't go into any more detail than that. I won't repeat what I just said. Core element 3 is training of staff. Core element 4, which is curriculum instruction related, and I don't know why you're at that. Sarah, do you turn your microphone off?
Turn your microphone on and off.
Can you turn yours off?
Rob, I think.
I'm not sure whose it is, but there's a back repeat going on.
Rob, am I able to mute mine? If I'm the host of the meeting?
Is that better for everybody?
Okay, now I'll talk. Yes, it's a little bit better. There's still back.
Like echo.
Yeah, there is an echo. Thank you, Sarah. And I'll keep them going. Core element 6, we exceeded in every area. Core element 7, we exceeded in every area, and core element 8, we exceed in every area, which just shows that we take the anti-bullying Bill of Rights very seriously at each of our 3 buildings. So tonight I'm going to be asking you to just to approve this motion in the regular session, approve the self-assessment and the scores that we post. If you slide down a little bit, Sarah, those are the descriptions of each of those core elements. So that's all I have to say about the HIB self-assessment. Does the board have any questions on that? Okay, going to the next thing on the agenda. I'll wait for Sarah to bring it up. Okay, Sarah, it's just reference the only contract we have on the agenda tonight is the shared service agreement. Do you want to just reference anything on that?
Yeah, nothing really to elaborate on. We've had this agreement in place since 2012. I believe it's good through 2022. So we're just renewing. We're just, putting on there again that we're still going to acknowledge that agreement for snow removal if we need it this winter with the township. Sorry, it doesn't specify on there, but this agreement is with the Township of Logan.
Okay, the next item is personnel and aides, and I think I've gone over everything and shared with the board, gave background information on the motions A through A1 through A4, which has to do with the aides. I will draw your attention to the fact when you get to the regular session that there was a caveat that I added on to each of those motions because each of those aides hours needed to be increased because of us being back in person. So in regards to us tonight discussing whether we're going to stay in person, hybrid, or go remote, I've added to motions A1 through 4 this caveat that says as long as schools are in hybrid model, because the increase in the aide hours is only needed if we are in the hybrid model. So that was something that I just added, and that gives us that idea, that out. We only need those aides hours, extra hours, if we're in person. Okay, I think that's all we need for personnel. After school clubs, it is posted. Sarah, if you don't mind pulling that chart up. I just want to draw your attention, and if any public is listening in, to the fact that the clubs that are posted that Sarah's going to be pulling up in a minute, and if you can enlarge that, okay, it shows that I think I did a rough estimate, close to $7,000 or $8,000 in after-school clubs, because these all have to do with mentoring and student voice, and they are directly supporting students who are disenfranchised, who might feel disenfranchised, bringing them in, making them feel that they have a voice and a role model. That's the goal of the grant. So we have close to $8,000 in after-school clubs that is being supported by the School Climate Transformation Grant, otherwise known as the Equity Grant. So that is very good news. Most of these clubs we've had in the past. The only new club that we are asking for approval for tonight is the elementary student voice. I'm very excited that 2 of our teachers have volunteered or agreed to facilitate the student voice club in the elementary school. So that should be exciting for this year. And then the final thing on the work session agenda is the professional learning opportunities. Sarah, if you pull that up. And I'd just like to draw the board's attention to the fact that even during the pandemic, especially during the pandemic, I should say, there you go. Thank you, Sarah. And if you can enlarge that, you will see that where we are really pushing professional development and ongoing workshops are for our nurses. So you can see that both of the workshops that are cited are workshops that our nurses have either attended or will attend. And obviously all workshops right now are remote. Okay, I think that's everything on the agenda that was on the agenda originally. If you can, so the next thing on the agenda, the next thing that was on the agenda that wasn't posted, but it should be, is, and we're adding to it, is the discussion of where we're going to go with whether we're going to stay with hybrid or go back to an all remote model. And we have time to talk about that, but before we do that, I want to make sure, are there any questions based on what I just went over already? No? I don't hear any questions, so we'll move on. So Sarah, will you pull up the presentation that says board, I think I entitled it very creatively tonight, board presentation November 18th. Okay, so obviously the board members as well as the community received the phone call midday today stating that I made the decision not to have remote learning and not to have the hybrid in-person learning go on for the next 2 days, while that gave the community a chance to realize that and make alternate plans, while the board was given the opportunity to discuss this tonight and to discuss the seriousness of where we find ourselves in the district. And so what I tried to do after speaking with the administration today is put together kind of where we're at, and then this is a sharing of all of our thoughts that we pulled together today after the past week and the past few days, and then it's going to be open to the board and the board to have conversation and comments on what you think. So the question here is, do we stay hybrid or do we go all remote? And that is the question. Next slide.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Okay. So 1 second, I'm looking. Okay. So I wanted to give the board members background information. I'm pretty sure you're aware of all of this, but also community members who are listening in. I think it's somewhat confusing, and I know I got a comment back from one parent today saying, well, if it's only one case, why are we just reflecting and just trying to decide if we should go all remote, excuse me. So what I thought we would do is put together some background information of where we are at in the district. Presently, we have had 5 staff members test positive for COVID since September. They were isolated because of being tested positive for COVID. Each of those staff members had to be isolated for 10 days. So that means, and that's exactly what it means, what it says is that they could not come in the building. But up until the last case, it did not affect any students because we were all remote at that grade level of any of those staff members that tested positive. Does that make sense to everybody? So if that staff member was remote and teaching from home and was asymptomatic and not ill or not feeling that bad, they were still teaching remotely from home. We have had also at least 7 staff members who were considered close contacts. And I put here the definition of what it means to be a close contact. And this is for everyone to understand. Someone who is within 6 feet of an infected person for a cumulative total of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period. And it starts from 2 days before the illness onset. And if there is a close contact, then that person needs to quarantine for 14 days. And that has been the job of our contact tracer in our district. And our contact tracer is Marjorie Cryan, one of our 3 nurses. And she took a 3-day course through Johns Hopkins back in the summer to learn how to contact trace. It is still a learning process, but she does a great job of doing the investigation and asking questions to determine who or how or if we had close contacts. So I wanted to explain that we have been able to get along up to this point, even though we have had different staff members in either being close contacts or testing positive because we were remote. So I believe you can see why staffing becomes the issue. It's whether or not we can staff our buildings while at different times. And right now with COVID cases increasing, people are getting quarantined for a variety of different times. So somebody might be on quarantine for 14 days and then another staff member after 3 or 4 more days is quarantined for another 14 days. And so this is just ongoing. Yesterday, we had to tell 5 parents, and this is now we're talking about students. So I shared with you about staff, now I want to share with you students. We had to we had to tell 5 parents that their children were considered a close contact of someone who had COVID, and as a result, they had a quarantine for 14 days. So for the first time, we've had children who've had a quarantine because of a close contact, and that's where we're at. So I hope that gives you the background of where we find ourselves. Are you moving to the next slide, Sarah? Okay. So the next part says there are many reasons why we need to consider moving into all remote learning, and I try to elicit them and explain them in the best way that I can with a lot of input from my administration. So the question is, what am I waiting for? COVID cases are increasing all around us. I don't have to elaborate on that. I think every time we put the television on or listen to any form of media, we know that the COVID cases are on a rise, not only in our town, in our county, in our state. I just saw the numbers tonight. In our state, it's one of the largest number of cases that we've had ever in our state and then across the nation. Sarah, if you would click on that link there. No, I don't want to go that far. No, can you go back? Am I? Oh, wait, my bad. I was on the wrong slide. Okay, sorry. Okay, I apologize.
Let me go forward.
No, you're fine. You are fine. Okay. So let me just explain a little bit more. I thought this was a really telling statement. Presently, the COVID cases are at a higher level than where they were at on March 13th, when the governor of New Jersey mandated that we close schools for 2 weeks. That statement and that fact resonated with me, that we are attempting to keep schools open when we're at a higher COVID case level than we were back in March. And there, we also know that what happened at Kingsway and why Kingsway had to close for a period of time, and they are presently all remote right now. And we know that there is a huge crossover of Kingsway and Logan families. There's a strong chance that there are siblings of Kingsway students who have tested positive, who those siblings of those Kingsway students could go to Logan. And there's a growing number of students whose family members have tested positive for COVID, and therefore these students are being quarantined. We continue to keep a list of them, and it is growing every day. So not only do we have staffing issues, but students are being quarantined, and therefore they have the ability to go remote. But we see a growing number every day. Now we can go to the next slide. I apologize for jumping slides. Okay, so as I was asking, what am I waiting for? If you click here on the COVID cases, this is a new slideshow that I had Lisa put together for us today. And it shows the COVID data for the last 7 days. So we try to be as current as possible. And this is for Gloucester County. So I think this, the board members know that I share this with you. I was sharing this with you every 2 weeks. The last couple times it's been every week. And what we tried to do for tonight is make this COVID data as current as possible. So Lisa put these numbers together. We get raw data from the county, and she was able to put it together. You can see that originally when we started collecting the data, the 18 to 22-year-olds were the highest age group in Gloucester County. But now it looks like the 30 to 49-year-old and the 50 to 64-year-olds are, and you can see there just in the past 7 days, 200 cases of 30 to 49-year-olds in Gloucester County. That supports that fact that I mentioned previously, that the fact that there are more and more family members who have COVID, who therefore their children are staying at home and are being quarantined. Okay, if you can move to the next slide. The next slide always gives us the idea of where the towns are. Where are COVID cases at prevalent, and where are they not as prevalent? We presently, if you look at Logan, you can see that we have been extremely fortunate up to this point. I think we had this week, Lisa, could you tell, I think it's 16 or 17 in the past 7 days. Am I correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And so when you compare that to other towns, we are relatively low, but I would draw your attention to, and you're going to see in a few minutes, the towns around us are creeping up. And again, I remind everybody that the connection between Kingsway families, Kingsway district families, meaning South Harrison, East Greenwich, Woolwich, interconnect so strongly with Logan families that it's hard to separate. So this is good data for us to keep in mind. Next slide. And then what we do is we put the cases in Gloucester County by towns. So this is the part where I put we put together the towns that feed into Kingsway for information that is, I think it's important. So you can see that Woolwich and East Greenwich's cases are pretty high, relatively high compared to South Harrison and Logan's. And this reflects, I believe, what's going on in the towns, but also the fact that Kingsway had that super spreader that Dr. Lavender referenced and sent home notice about. Next slide. And then if you look at this slide, you will see that I have it broken out by age groups. So I really count my blessings, our blessings right now. And that's why I keep on thinking, how long is this going to last? But you will see that Logan is not cited in any of these cases of children contracting COVID-19 in the 0 to 4 population, the 5 to 9 population, or the 10 to 13 population, which are the populations that we have as our student population. So you can see here the towns that do have a number of cases in the 0 to 4 age group. You can see the towns that have a number of cases in the 5 to 9 age group. Again, Logan is not there. And you can see the number of cases in the 10 to 13 age group. Again, you can see that Logan is not there, but you also can see that our surrounding counties, our surrounding towns, East Greenwich, Woolwich, do have a number of students in the 10 to 13 age group. They have been in person up to this point. Obviously, we all know our middle school has not been in person. And then our 14 to 17-year-olds across the county, you can see that the towns that have a good number of 14 to 17-year-olds. This is a group that we do have a number of students from Logan, and we had 2 15-year-olds, 1 16-year-old, and 2 17-year-olds. So they were all high school age students who live in Logan. And that's the concern about the cross-contamination. I think that's the end of that slideshow. Am I correct? If we can go back to the original slideshow. Again, I'm trying to share with the board current information to help us guide us in this decision making. So based on the data, and staying in the hybrid model could result in more staff members being tested for COVID positive, which means that more staff members could get sick, which means that we have more of a need of substitutes. And everybody knows, as good as subs can be, the quality of the instruction, especially in this hybrid and model, could go down. Could have a negative effect on the quality of instruction. Next slide. Thank you, whoever made that bigger. So basically, I'm saying to the board, there's too much risk. With middle schoolers set to return, we believe that we would just be taking a risk to increase the COVID spread in the middle school. Middle schoolers, we know, are social beings. All we need to do is look at our cameras out in the back, in the backfield, where our students are in the backfield playing after hours and off hours. They are not staying 6 feet apart. Bringing them back with the numbers are so high, I believe, and we believe, is just risky, especially with the surrounding towns and the surrounding county COVID numbers going up. There are middle school students, we now know, as you saw in the data, in all 3 towns, East Greenwich, Woolwich, and South Harrison, who have COVID cases. We don't have COVID cases right now in the middle school, and I want to keep it that way. Okay. So the other thing to talk about is the fact that remote learning is going well. We have worked on it thanks to our administration, to our IT department, and to our teachers who have really worked hard on remote learning in the past marking period. We are prepared to go back to remote learning or to stay in remote learning for the case of the middle school. More and more parents, especially of our older students, are recognizing this. I've gotten emails. I know our principal of our middle school have gotten emails in regards to that their students, especially in the middle school, are doing well. So I wanted to show you, if you click on that next link, Sarah, I thought it was important for the board to also see that link that says remote versus hybrid. Thank you. And if you could make good, perfect. You knew where I was headed. Okay, so I thought it was important to see the percentage of students whose parents have opted for hybrid versus remote. And this is pretty recent data. Up until 3 o'clock this afternoon, we were changing these numbers and percentages of the number of students whose parents opted for remote. And if you notice in the middle school, we are up to 40% in 6th grade whose parents have opted for remote, and 38, close to 39% in 8th grade whose parents have opted to stay remote, that their children are being successful. I look at that, the children are being successful in remote. Some of them are nervous about sending their children back, especially with these COVID numbers, and so they've opted to go that way. The numbers in the other grades are listed there. We go from a low of 17% in 1st grade to, not counting the middle school, a high of 36% in 4th grade whose parents have chosen to keep them remote. We know that if first grade and second grade and pre-K and K, that if you look at kindergarten especially, that's a lower number in remote, because we know our kindergarten parents believe that the children learn best if they're in school. I just wish that we could control the staffing issue, but we still don't have control over that, even the staffing in our kindergarten and pre-K and first grade. Okay, can we go back to the slideshow?
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate all this, Sarah. Okay, so the other thing that why we believe we should go to remote learning right now is if and when a staff member tests positive, and if they don't show symptoms, and if they are well enough, and up to this point that has been the case, they can still teach remotely from home. But if a staff member tests positive and we are in the hybrid model, obviously they have to be isolated for the 10 days. That is a staffing issue. Next slide. So a big question that we have, and that really is where it comes down to, and I referenced it in my weekend memo to you this past weekend, and that was even before what happened on Monday and Tuesday. How do we sustain staffing? We've had to use staff right now to cover classes for those who are out due to quarantine or if they were out for isolation. So this creates crossing of cohorts. And this is the occurrence that's happened recently, is that some of our staff members who are not scheduled to be in a specific classroom then are asked to cover a class for a teacher who is not in because they're quarantined or isolated. And that has occurred over the past couple days more frequently. And so that same staff member is being tapped on in a variety of classrooms. And if that staff member then becomes COVID positive, then we have had that staff member interact with a variety of classrooms. And that was not our point. Our point was to have the same cohort of students intersect with the same teacher on an ongoing basis. But because so many staff members and are being quarantined at different times, we really are having to depend on people that we weren't expecting to have to sub in classrooms. I hope that makes sense. You go back to the previous, I wasn't finished yet. Thank you. Okay, that's all right. The other thing to keep in mind, I'm trying to paint the full picture for everyone. Our IT department has to go to the rooms to support the subs in the classroom, because the technology expertise needed by those teachers is extremely complicated. So this happens often, and over the past 2 to 3 weeks, our IT department has been going in, especially since we brought back first and second grade and then third through fifth grade. So more staff members are in the building for in-person learning. Our IT department is going into multiple classrooms to assist them and to troubleshoot. And that scares me, because we are putting our IT department in danger. What happens if any of our administrators who oversee all of this, or our IT staff members, gets COVID? We really are going to be lost, because right now, if we're finding it difficult to have a proper substitute come in and cover for a teacher, we could never find that for our IT department and our administration. And so if we continue in this mode that I've been seeing for the past couple of days, that is a worry of mine. So I think I'm leaving this slide. I think I want maybe one more slide, but I thought this analogy was pretty good in showing you where we are at with subs right now. We said schools are like supermarkets right now. They're help wanted signs out, and no one is applying. We can't get subs. We have tried with our substitute service. We are lucky enough to have 2 subs over at Center Square, but we have no substitutes for our LES or LMS. We are not able to get that. So every time we have someone quarantined, that's when the jockeying of teachers have to go, and that's when we cross-contaminate or possibly cross-contaminate by crossing over of cohorts. We have also a number of maternity leaves coming up, and we are not receiving applications for those positions. If we go all remote, we are going to have a little breathing room, because as I explained, our teachers, even if they are COVID positive, can teach from home. And also we can enlarge in the class size. if the students are in school, we cannot have any more than 12 students in a classroom. But if we're remote and we are limited in staff, we could have more students remotely. So that is another reason. But now we're ready to go to the next slide. So we put together a continuum for the board, and I hope this kind of gives you an idea of, I'm just trying to pull this up bigger so that I can see it, and I apologize. 1 second. Okay, so what we did was we put a variety of possibilities here with going from number one would be we would have less students and less staff in the buildings, and therefore a less chance of spreading COVID. And then on the right side would be more staff and more students in the building. So I'm going to take you down to number 5. If we stayed the course, all cohorts stay in the building, and the remote decision waits for now, and we don't go remote, we would end up having more staff and more students in the building. And that is a worry for us. Now I'm going to go back to number 1. One would be if we go remote learning for all students pre-K through grade 8 until further notice, or until a specific date, starting immediately. That would present us with less students, less staff in the buildings, and less of a chance to spread COVID. And then the possibilities in between. Both of the possibilities in red would be, I made the decision that needed to be made for the convenience of families today, that I told them midday that we were going remote for at least Thursday and Friday of this week, because I believe that they needed that time for to plan for tomorrow and Friday. But we still have next Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday that students are the first grade, pre-K through 5th grade, and our special needs population would still be coming into the building. So number 2 would say we would keep, as of the week of November 23rd, we would continue as planned. And then we would go full remote for learning. So it's the same, similar to number 1, but number 2 would mean that we would just have next week, bring back those students pre-K to 5, and then go full remote after that. Personally, I think we're taking risks there. I don't see the benefit of bringing those students back for 3 days. Then I would go to number 3, and number 3 is where I am leaning and where the administration is leaning. And that is remote learning for students in grades 1 to 8 until further notice, until the COVID numbers are more in control, until we can feel as if we can staff all 3 of our schools safely. And then remote learning for the pre-K, K, and all students with IEPs who are currently attending 4 days would go remote, but until a designated date, perhaps in December. So we would basically saying that is our suggestion, that we would say we would have grades 1 to 8 remote for until a time period when that is not able to be decided right now. But we would be bringing back pre-K, with the idea that we would be bringing back pre-K, K, and our special needs population earlier, as soon as we believe that we had enough staffing that we could bring them back as they had been since the middle of October. So I hope I gave the board, I hope I didn't confuse you. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more option. The option number 4, and option number 4 is we would have next week the same as it is, bring them back as planned, and then we would do option 3. Personally, I believe number 2 and number 4 is off the books. I don't believe that we're going to gain anything by bringing children back Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But this is where we want to open it up to the board members to discuss your thoughts, your questions of us. I'm thrilled that my administration team is here tonight, because they are the boots on the ground. They're the ones who every day are solving problems, and I wanted them to be able to help support and answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to open it up to the board. Frank?
Yes, Pat. We can open up to the board. I'm sure there's going to be some questions, so just identify yourself before you ask your question. Oh.
This is Lene. I have a question, or maybe it's more of a suggestion.
Sure.
and I don't know where we're going to land as a board after all this conversation, but looking at number 3, when you're considering bringing back the pre-K and K first, and as you all know, I have a kindergartner and then I have middle school. So right now I'm putting on my middle school parent hat. I'm wondering if maybe you could flip it, because pre-K and K have already had that experience of being in the building, you know, face to face with their teachers for at least a month, whereas the middle school will not have had the opportunity at all. So I'm wondering if maybe you consider bringing back middle school first, just in case we have to backtrack again, but at least they will get some opportunity to have that face-to-face time where the younger children have already had that chance.
Thanks, Lene, for that thought and that suggestion.
This is Kelly. I just wanted to backtrack. Pat, you were talking about item number 3, and I believe I heard you ask or state that when we got our staffing under control, or we had a better grip on the staffing. I'm just wondering what you mean by that.
Well, right now, I don't have a crystal ball, Kelly, but right now we have a good number of staff that are out, either because of quarantine, because of isolation, or because of the FFCRA Act. We are stretched to begin with our staff, because and so tomorrow, I have to tell you, we were worried. We were worried about the middle school because of several recent quarantines and isolations that we have. And then Center Square, the issue that occurred yesterday just magnified that issue over there. And we share a lot of staff. So I don't know where the COVID cases are going. Right now they're spiking. Right now they're on an increase. So I'm thinking, who knows, but maybe sometime in the month of December, I wish I had a crystal ball, but if COVID numbers start not, or at least plateau and don't continue to rise, maybe we will not see the number of increase of COVID cases and in our staff. And maybe we could then try to say, could we bring back an age group? That's what I meant by that, Kelly.
I think the other issue too is that the holidays are coming up. We have Thanksgiving, and you know, I'm sure a lot of people are going to ignore the advice and they're going to go out and celebrate with their families, which I don't blame them. But that could spread the disease more. And also, you have kids coming back from college, and that seems to be a super spreader event when you have college kids coming around. So I think those are issues you have to take into consideration.
Frank, I appreciate you bringing that up. We were so focused on explaining to the board the multiple issues that we're aware of in the schools that we didn't mention those two things, but that's really what started this discussion, is that we are entering into a period of holidays when families get together, whether they should or should not. That is not for me to decide. I'm working on what is happening in the schools. But the college students coming home is a very worrisome, as well as the two holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then New Year's. So this is the period of time. Not only are the numbers spiking, but it's cold outside. People are gathering inside, and families are getting together. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's been watching the news lately, but there's an awful lot of people who are rushing to get tested, and the assumption is a lot of them are getting tested because they want to be able to spend Thanksgiving with their families. So they're hoping to come back with a negative test, and that's pretty frightening. Because you could test today and have a negative test, and then 2 days later come back with a positive, and you wouldn't know it, but you'd start spreading the disease around. Any other questions any other comments, questions?
I have another question. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Ms. Reed. This is Mrs. Hill again. I just was wondering, are there any mandates as far as, the county superintendent or the governor or whatever as to when we can decide to go all remote versus hybrid? I mean, does there have to be a certain number of cases, or you can just make that decision at any time? They're just leaving it up to the districts.
We're leaving it. There is no mandate. The governor has been silent in that, and the county superintendent does not have that power. So it is a local decision. It is my responsibility to bring to the board the issues that we are presented with in the school, that we believe that we are unable to continue in the hybrid model with what we have seen in the past week with staffing and the rising COVID cases. So I think we're doing the right thing in making the board aware, talking about it, discussing it, the board and the administration together today. That's why I had the administration here. They could lend their view of things, and then for us to locally make that decision. We have the ability that if we do not believe it is safe and we can't meet the safety and health guidelines, different than the safety and health guidelines that we believe we weren't ready for in September, in the summer. It's just the COVID cases are increasing and staff and students are being affected.
So Pat, this is Kelly again. I guess that's what's going to be my question. I didn't have a chance to get to you earlier. I've really been, like, from the minute that I left the house this morning until I got back home, been working. But I guess that's what I was going to ask, is the reason why that we're going all virtual tomorrow and Friday is because we didn't think we had the capacity to keep the kids safe? Or
Yes.
is it kind of like a pause in the momentum? Because I guess I just feel I feel poorly for some of the kids that wanted to come in to school the next 2 days, and I just worry that once we go full virtual, I don't know. I mean, obviously we have to consider so many different things, but I just feel as if once we say we're going all virtual, it's going to be a very long time till we get these kids back in school. And, just myself as an educator, having been working hybrid with kids, there's nothing beats being face to face with kids. And I know that would be obviously what everybody wants. Certain families have decided, because they need to make decisions for their own families. However, just for the teacher's standpoint and the kid's standpoint, just having that face-to-face time there's nothing that compares. And I hope that we just didn't prematurely cut them short, and we don't cut them short these next few days, giving them a chance to be in the building, even if it is just for a few hours.
So Kelly, I appreciate those feelings, and I would hope that as well as the board, that we would never rush to a decision. We have been living this for the past marking period, the full marking period, but especially the past 1 to 2 weeks, where we saw the numbers increase, the staffing become harder. Therefore, we are cross cohort we're crossing our staff members to different cohorts. Contact tracing is less reliable then. So we're trying to be scientific. That's why I shared the data with you. All the data is pointing to the fact that the numbers are increasing all around us. I guess what I would say, Kelly, is that I was feeling the same way that you were at the beginning of the week, or that you expressed when you said, or I'll put it in my words, I was feeling bad for our middle school students. I was thinking, but they should have an opportunity to come back and see their teachers and be face to face with them. And I feel bad. And then I had to think about it, and I take the emotion out of this decision making. And once I took the emotion out, because that's where it was with me, it was emotion. I want to have the middle school have the same experience that the other students did for 2 days. And I'm chancing right now, when COVID cases are spiking, I'm taking that risk that by bringing them back for 2 days, because I want them back, because I want them to feel good, that would be appropriate to chance the increase and the spike in COVID cases. And not only I, but the rest, not only me, but the rest of the administrators came to the same conclusion. We can't continue this way. We are just putting a finger in the dike. And yes, do students want to see their teachers? But right now, if the teacher is at home, they're coming in because they're quarantined, and the students are coming in, they're not seeing their teacher is at home. And I will tell you, for remote learning, I can speak for the remote learning at Logan. It has been quality instruction going on. And we have seen, and I think I might reference, Catherine, if you don't mind me putting you on a spot right now, but you referenced earlier today, or maybe it was Christy, what you saw in the faces of the students when they came in to school this week. Yes, they were excited, but it was as if they had formed a relationship already with that teacher through remote learning. And that's what we're seeing, is that the relationships have already been established because of the remote learning model that we have. And so that, in the best of all possible worlds, do we want them to be in a classroom? We want the full classroom to be there with the teacher. But right now, there's a greater likelihood that when they come into the classroom, there's going to be a sub. And we don't even know who that sub is. It's going to be someone who's pulled and stretched. And I'm worried that we're going to have to double up classes, and therefore we go above our 12 number, the number of socially distanced. So you can tell from my response, it has been well thought out. It is not a knee jerk, let's do it quickly. The only reason I made a decision, similar to a snow day decision, about closing for the next 2 days, is because I wanted the board to have the opportunity to make this decision, but I also wanted to give Justin, and I'm hoping that the board chooses to go remote. But if they, this way, at least community members this afternoon had all day today to prepare that school would not be in session tomorrow and Friday.
This is Mrs. Roan. I just had a question. I know that Lene mentioned about were there any mandates for the state, and there wasn't any, but are there any recommendations as far as the Department of Health, as far as case rates and where we are and where our region is, that could also support some of the ideas that we're having about possibly going all remote?
Alexis, the DOH, and that's a very good question. The DOH, we've been in contact with the DOH each time we have a COVID positive case. Each time we have a suspected COVID case, because the DOH helps guides us. So they do it individually, case by case. That's how they're getting involved. They're not giving recommendations by a school. But I can give you some information about other districts, because what we do in the county is every Tuesday, all of the superintendents have a conference called a Google Meet. Actually, it's a Zoom, I think. And we spend a good hour to an hour and a half sharing where we're at. I can tell you right now, other districts are in the same boat as we are. We know that Kingsway is closed at least through Thanksgiving. My understanding is they are considering at least the week after Thanksgiving. East Greenwich just closed yesterday because of staffing issues, at least through, I believe through at least till November 30th. I am not sure about Woolwich. I can't speak to you because I wasn't on I did not hear from that superintendent. But I do know that Clayton is closed indefinitely. No, State Clayton is closed from now through January 15th. Clayton's in Gloucester County. And Woodbury is closed immediately through and to an unspecified end date. So we are, and those are just off the top of my head. Obviously, I'm most concerned with the ones closest around us, but anybody in Gloucester County, Gateway is closing the week at least the week after Thanksgiving. So that's I can give that. I hope that gives you some data that we're not doing this alone, that other districts that are making this decision.
Alexa, the governor hasn't made any recommendations, but he has limited the number of people who can be indoors in a group as to 10, which makes it kind of sit there and scratch your head as to why schools are allowed to be open, but you can't go into another building with more than 10 people.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Kim. I have a question. So with the option number 3, it says, oh no, sorry, not 3. Where's the one? I thought there was an option where you had pre-K, kindergarten.
And IEP students coming back earlier?
Yes.
Yeah, that's 3.
Okay. So is that because of the mandates on technology for them, or is that because of studies for virtual learning based on their age, or just because, I guess I should say, what is that due to? Why that group?
I would say the second reason is the primary reason, that we have seen such success with pre-K and K students being back in the building. They don't relate to, as much as I just praise remote learning is best for children 3rd grade on up, if at all, especially in the middle school. The older the child gets with remote learning, the more successful they are. They can navigate technology better. They have the ability to multitask, and so they are much more successful. Our pre-K, K, and 1 students, and even 2 around in that are they're less successful. But in pre-K and K, there is a definite, first of all, we brought them back or sooner, and we have seen the success, as well as our special needs students. That age group does need the interaction, the personal interaction with a teacher and the aides in the classroom, we believe. And data does support that the younger the student, the better it is if a child is in the classroom. The older the student gets through the elementary grades and into middle school, they can be more successful. So it is that. You referenced your first point about devices. Every one of our children, K through 8, have their own device, has a district issued devices. We actually are now, our laptop bags should be delivered. Actually, if they weren't delivered today, and Rob helped me out, they're supposed to be delivered tomorrow. So those district-owned devices will be able to go home with the children. We were just waiting for the laptop bags. So that's for K to 8. Pre-K, they're not supposed to be on devices that long. So pre-K, it is difficult to run a remote program. Special needs students, they're all the data, not just in our not just the anecdotal data that we have in our district, but across the county and in the state, the push is to get special needs students back. So that's the reason why we are picking those 3 groups of students, if any, to bring them back once we, and I can't answer that, but once we feel that we can bring them back safely. Right now, our pre-K, K and 1, our Center Square school, we were worried about staffing tomorrow with that latest issue, because we were stretched to begin with. And that's all I can say.
Yeah, so I think, I guess the biggest issue here, to me, it sounds like is the staffing. And so we could talk about, and I'm not saying this flip, but, we know that this has been hard on students. It's been hard on parents. It's been hard on a lot of people. And I do agree with the fact that, I had to tell a middle schooler who is in a house with their 2nd grade brother who got to go to school for 2 weeks or whatever, and I understand where that's coming from, but I also feel like, this is a slippery time with emotions and things like that for everybody. But I also feel like it's a health risk, and a health risk supersedes, I want to be in a building for 4 hours, in my opinion. I can't speak for everybody, but I feel like some of these options that include having students in the building, whether it's all the students or just a couple of those students, it still goes back to staffing. And so I guess what I'm wondering is, what if some of other districts who, and I guess it wouldn't be the ones you just talked about, but how do you become successful with the staffing, or how do you combat the staffing issue so that you can bring the students back in for a couple of hours? How do you do that? I mean, are you allowed to make certain restrictions on your staff's time outside of the building? Or are you, I know you have RUVNA, but I mean, that's an honor system. Is there some way to be able to mandate, so to speak, that if you're going to be working here and interacting with our community, you have to do XYZ in some, because otherwise, and I'm leaning towards you probably telling me no, but otherwise, this is a control factor and we don't have control. We don't have control over COVID. We don't have control over what people do. I mean, I was listening into a conversation today with students, and young students especially, they give up the tea. And one student was saying how next week they're driving down to South Carolina and their fathers, purchased a hotel room for them to stay in, and they're going to see their grandma for the holidays. Like, all you got to do is ask questions of little kids and they're going to tell you exactly what's going on. So I don't really think we can control. I mean, we can control as much as possible safety, but if the factor is human and you can't control adults, then I don't really know what else you do besides until it seems like the environment is better.
So there's a little bit of this, first of all, thank you, Kim. I'm just looking at the time. I want to kind of summarize two things and then hand it over to Frank. One is, please know that I did take the emotion out of this, and so did the administration. And we really did make a recommendation to you that we believe we should go all remote because it is a health risk. I think that term is perfect. We are risking the lives of our students and our staff. We believe if we don't make this decision. There are other districts that I did not reference that are close to making this decision. Trust me, the ones who haven't made it are just the ones who haven't just made that final leap and that final decision. So you're going to see that coming. Well, I would suggest, Frank, before so we can move into the regular session, that possibly I would say that we would go all remote learning and for all students, and I'm going to say for all students pre-K to 8, possibly at least for the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, if you're not willing to go longer than that, or at least until the next board meeting, if we can go that direction. I would feel that we could, I feel like that is the right decision. And it is someone, that feeling, and I said I just took the emotion in, but I believe that is the right decision based on facts.
I'm fine with that, but I guess we can open it up and just each board member can just add into that and just give us your comment on Pat's suggestion. How about if I start? Kim, what do you think?
Frank?
Yes, Carolyn.
This is Carolyn. So actually, I decided all evening that I would sit and wait to hear what parents were actually saying and what Pat was actually presenting. I personally, if I had a child that was eligible for this, I wouldn't send mine to school. I'd be of the parents who didn't opt to send them in. But I wanted to hear the opinions of board members who have children who are affected by this. But this is my thinking. We have the staffing problem is really real. That's something that we have to think about. And I'm envisioning if we were to not sort of stop this for a bit and keep it open, say we were to go with that part of it, that to me is insane. Because what we'd be doing, we would have staff members who are getting sick perhaps, and then just throwing other people in there. That's irresponsible. Our children, we can, Kim, you just talked about how we have no control over what people do once they leave the building anyway. So my feeling again is that I sort of leave it to parents, and I'm listening to you, but I also trust Pat and the staff members and the administrators who are there every day, who can see this and who understand what we're talking about. We're not going to get other people to come in. And even if we could get subs in regular times are not always that good. We can't afford to have subs who can't manage in this kind of situation. So I just wanted to put that out there before we take a vote and move on any further. And that's how I feel about it. We've got to move with caution. Our kids and our staff, they have to be the first priority. And that's where I am.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Carolyn. Kim?
You're asking for a vote? Sorry.
I'm just looking for a thumbs up or a thumbs down on Pat's suggestion for motion number, item number 3.
I always have been since the September board meeting on it all remote. It's not the favorable for everybody, but I think that for all of this district, we just need to take a pause and we need to let things take its course. And so I vote for all remote.
All right. Thanks, Kim. Kelly?
Well, I have two theories here. One, knowing what we know now about the virtual learning, all virtual, it's a well-oiled machine. Personally, I was going to send my daughter back for hybrid, but honestly, she was just going to give it a try because sitting for 4 hours just didn't seem ideal, and there's just a couple other reasons, but she wanted to give it a try. But anyway, in terms of when we come back, I would like to talk about possibly if we pause for a little while and come back a designated date that we could consider bringing everybody back, not just the younger ones who I feel like we could find arguments on both sides. That I know the elementary, the younger ones learn, they need that time off the screen, but I do think there needs to be consideration for the upper elementary and middle school kids and their need to have face-to-face time with their peers and the adults that shape them. So I'm fine with going all remote, but I would like to consider a time in the near future if we're going to bring them back, to bring everybody back.
Okay. Why don't we, Pat suggested the next board meeting to talk about it. That's the 16th of December. Is that a good date to start to think about it? Or is that's too close to Christmas?
I mean, in my honest gut opinion, I don't think we're going to be coming back until after the holidays, meaning.
I agree with you, Kelly.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be after, yeah.
I would actually probably say spring, but just because of the way things are, but
Yeah.
I think consider it small pieces. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Kristen.
I just wanted to say that I am under the same feeling that it's not going to happen probably until after the holidays. But I think that we should say that we're going to reevaluate every 2 weeks, because I feel like then we're showing good faith that we're looking into the data and the trends and where things are going. So I think just saying like until the 16th or after Christmas, it just seems so far away. I think we need to say that we're reevaluating it. And I know we are. But I think if we put it in writing and vote on it that way, it might come across, as better than just an indefinite time.
Okay. All right, Kristen. Lene, your thoughts?
I agree actually with exactly how Kristen just said it, going all remote, but reevaluating every couple of weeks.
All right. Alexis, how about you?
I'm also in agreement with going all remote, and just thinking of keeping in mind the data and what it's showing about the case rates, so that we can have an informed decision as we reevaluate going forward. Also, I just wanted to make a note. I know it is very challenging for parents who may have students with IEPs and special needs, and trying to keep in line with data for their goals and making progress is a little more challenging for parents at home. So that also makes me feel like we should look at it on a every 2-week basis, as was suggested.
All right, thanks. All right, Brian, how about you?
I agree, going remote.
Okay. So John Russell?
He's not on. He was on.
Yeah.
I don't see him on now.
He's still.
Yeah, he's there.
He's still there. I see his picture and his mic's on. John, if you turn your mic on?
If he's on the phone, what is it? *6?
No, he's
unmute?
on a computer tonight.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, though, Kim. You're right.
John? All right, well, Pat, are you in agreement then? We'll just, as suggested, we'll just,
John just joined.
hi, John, do you have any comments on what we've been talking about?
So while we're waiting for John, just want a clarity. So what we're saying is we're going to go all remote and for all grades with a reevaluation. And I would assume that's reevaluation by the administration.
Yeah.
And then we would reevaluate every 2 weeks with then an update to the board at the next board meeting. Am I putting it correctly?
Yeah, you could just let the board know based, as you've been doing it, let's say on a Friday memo, and then we would again go back to the next meeting to.
Okay.
Just for clarity, this is just a straw vote, though. We're going to have the actual vote after the public has an opportunity to speak. Is that correct? Well, Pat has the obligation or the right to just make the decision on her own. So I think she was just bringing this up for the board. We can have this on the talk about it, I guess, during the public meeting, so they'll have a comment to bring it up. But Pat, as the chief school administrator, can make this decision on her own.
Oh, excuse me though, too. I have a question about the evaluation. What's it going to be based on? Are we going, since nobody will be in the buildings, will we base it on the number of COVID positive tests or the community, the county?
Carolyn, I'll just speak for it. That's all we've got. So I would continue to look at the county, the towns, the surrounding towns, and I would be giving you a report on staff positives and student positives and close contact. So there's a lot of data that we could share.
Yeah, that sounds good. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Renee, I think under new business, we can just bring up the fact that we've made the decision to go all remote with the evaluations be done every 2 weeks. That way the public gets a chance to hear it and then they can have input during any comment that we have. Okay?
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so it's now the 8:12, so we're 12 minutes late to have the regular meeting, so I guess we should get into that portion of it.
Frank, I believe that there was one link tonight. Am I correct, Sarah? So anybody that did come on at 8 should have been able to be listening to this.
Okay.
So,
All right, good.
I think we were safe.
Is there any public out there?
There is. We have 87 people watching.
Oh, okay.
Just a couple.
Just a few, yes. All right, Sarah, if you'll put up the regular meeting agenda then. All right, I'll call the meeting. I'll call Brian. I guess we're all turned on there, so we can just go right into it.
Yep.
Yeah, we should be good to go.
Yep.
Rob, are we all ready?
Everything is still going. Yep, you're fine to go.
All right, thanks, Rob. Call the meeting in order of the Logan Township Board of Education for November 18th. Adequate notice having been provided by the posting of notices with the Township Clerk, South Jersey Times, and all board members having been notified a regular meeting is being held virtually due to COVID-19. As governed by Board Policy 0167, which states the board presiding officer may waive rules when necessary to maintain an orderly operation of the board meeting. Since it's a remote meeting, I've decided to have only one public participation. Pose any questions which may whether work on the agenda or not. Okay, let's go on to roll call.
1 second, Frank.
Sarah, if you can mute there you go.
Got it. We're good now.
All right, you ready for roll call?
Yeah, Mr. Donnelly?
Here.
Mrs. Kegler?
I can't hear you clearly.
Mrs. Kegler, is that better?
Yes, here.
Dr. Bowen,
Here.
Mrs. Hill,
Here.
Mrs. Lombardo,
Here.
Mrs. Mason,
Here.
Mrs. Reed,
Here.
Mrs. Roan,
Here.
Mr. Russell, I think Mr. Russell connected through the phone because he's switched over to a phone number, and I did just have to, I'm going to try to unmute him. Oh, I can't unmute him when he's on a phone call. Kim, what was that advice you were given earlier? What's the number to hit?
It is *6, Sarah.
*6.
Okay, *6 to unmute. John, if you can, if you're present.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Oh, there he is. Yep, thank you. That's everybody.
All right, thank you, Sarah. All right, we can roll down. All right, Pat, any presentations at all?
No additional presentations other than what we made during the work session.
Okay. And of course, you've informed me that the public heard all we had to say during the work session. So let's open up the meeting for any public comment they would like to make on anything at all.
Okay, I have a few here. I'll start from the top. Melissa Hazelton from 137 Applewood Drive. With the increase of cases at the regional level, especially Kingsway, it's safe to assume that they have younger siblings in the Logan School District schools. Don't you think we should close the elementary schools? I think that's already been addressed during work session. Would you agree, Mr. Donnelly?
Yes, Sarah, we've already addressed that question, and we will be closing the school down effective tomorrow, and we'll be reevaluating based on countywide and local data every 2 weeks.
Tara Kane from 302 Catalano Lane. We are such a close community with Swedesboro and Woolwich, et cetera, that we use all the same stores, et cetera. Their cases do affect us, if not directly. Numbers will rise. Going remote fully will give consistency to the children that they need and give teachers safety. One child potentially getting sick is why we should close. One life matters. One case is enough.
Agreed. Thank you for your comments. We agree 100%.
Erin Myers, 33 Stone Mill. I appreciate your concern, Kelly, as my 12-year-old had a very difficult day after she learned school was closing. At this age, seeing their friends is significant. I ask that if the board decides to do a virtual, please do not go hybrid until you are able to remain open, even if cases rise, as the back and forth is very tough on them mentally.
Okay. I think we've addressed that. We'll be going virtual, but we'll be reevaluating the data every 2 weeks. So if we go back to hybrid, we're going to stay that way. Correct?
That
Mary Kate Garrity from 3.
As much as we can say, yes.
Yes.
That's our goal. Our goal was to open tomorrow. Again, I go back to that crystal ball. I wish I had it. But I would say that we just have to make the decision every 2 weeks based on the data that's available to us. It is not our desire to go back and forth.
Mary Kate Garrity at 344 Newcastle Lane. First, I'd like to say that the teachers and staff have done an amazing job with remote learning. I believe we should stay remote through the holidays. People are going to travel regardless of what the governor says, and then send their kids to school and put our teachers at risk. Please keep our teachers and staff and students safe.
Okay.
Jolyn Naylor, 834 Windsor Drive. Another consideration is for teachers at Logan who are parents. What will happen if their children's schools and daycares close? Some teachers may not be able to teach live for 4 hours a day because they have multiple children at home. If this is the case, is it possible for the plan for virtual instruction be adjusted?
Pat, I'll leave that one to you, or Christy.
I think that right now we have a remote plan that is working, and that was what we are going. We believe that we can fully implement that remote plan based on the staff that we have. We have to keep in mind that when we go remote, when we go remote, we can increase the number of students that a teacher has. We don't have to have as many, we don't have to divide them between two classes. So if we do have cases where staff is not able to work for a variety of reasons, most importantly because of COVID, then we at least have some much more flexibility with staffing if we're in the remote model. Christy Jansen, did you want to add anything to that as Director of Curriculum Instruction?
No, I think you covered that, Pat.
Okay, thank you.
About that. Yep.
Wendy Bosco, 203 Freedom Drive. Every 2 weeks seems too flip-floppy. We need structure and buy-in. If it seems to the students' parents that we can keep changing back and forth, my fear is that the students will not have the structure and schedules that leads to success. All these changes are not good.
Frank, do you want me to address that?
Yeah, yes, Pat.
Okay. I personally did not see this saying that we are reevaluating every 2 weeks as flip-flop. I see it as giving us, I think right now, the fact that we say we're going hybrid is the path that we're on. By reevaluating, it gives us the ability to look at data to see if our decision is on the right path or not. But I do not see this meaning that we're going to flip-flop back and forth. First 2 weeks remote, next 2 weeks hybrid, next 2 weeks remote. I do not see that our decision tonight means that.
That's the final question that has come through.
All right, thanks, Sarah. All right, if you can move down, Pat, everybody got the Pat's Friday memo, and she explained a lot of the issues that were on the agenda. Any questions on any of the items that were on the agenda?
Yeah, the only thing that I would draw attention to, Frank, is what I said during the work session. Can you slide down to A1 through 4? There, that's perfect right there. It's good. The original agenda, that original motion did not have that final phrase on. Now that we're going remote, we will not need to, A1 to A4, we will not need to increase their hours. That's why I added on, just in case that was a possibility, due to additional, wait a minute. This agenda does not have the right phrase on. Frank, if we could change that and add for motions A1 to 4, as long as schools are in hybrid model, because we only need these 4 aides to have their hours increased when we're in hybrid. So I want that added on to each of the motions A1 to 4.
Okay, so we'll amend those motions to add that phrase. Lisa, you got that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. All right, so those 1 to 4 is amended to reflect the statement that Pat made to as long as we're in hybrid hours.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
I believe, can you slide down, Sarah? I just want to make sure when we're looking at this agenda that we've addressed everything. Just keep on sliding, please. Keep on going. Keep on going. Fine, thank you so much. Oh, you want to put the added agenda on? I just want to explain something just now, that the agenda that you're seeing up here is not the agenda that's on the website. This is, Sarah, I think we pulled up the wrong agenda. Has been changed. The 2 agendas have been changed and updated this afternoon. So the one on the website for the public, this is important for the public to know, is the accurate agenda. But it's just that one section, A1 to 4, those 4 motions that is affected. I think that everything else here is addressed. Does anybody have any questions?
I think we're fine.
Okay.
Any questions at all from the board members? All right. The Finance Committee met last night, and we're telling the board that it's okay to accept the financial reports as listed and the bill list. All right, no other questions, and we need a motion.
Frank, hey
Yeah.
Frank, this is Kim. I'm sorry, I do
Yes,
have a
Kim.
question. Speaking of the bill list, and I'm asking this, and I apologize in advance that I have not looked over. But just wondering, Sarah, have we gotten a bill for? I know it hasn't been that long, but from Holcomb, from the bus people, have they honored our agreement, or is it too
Yes.
early? Okay.
No, we've gotten bills and yes, and we're making sure they're good about making sure they charge us the agreed amount days, depending on whether we're remote or students are in, and whether or not they're employing their drivers or their drivers are on employment also impacts the bill. So we've been monitoring that, and they've been billing accurately.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. Thank you.
We
And
talked
Kim,
about that last night, Kim,
Yeah, that's
during the Finance Committee meeting.
yeah, Kim, last night Sarah mentioned to the Finance Committee the fact that she has really been pleased with how Holcomb is working with us and making sure they're living up to that agreement.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Welcome, Kim. All right, no other questions, and we need a motion to accept the minutes, the financial reports, the agenda items, and the bill list.
So moved.
Second,
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Donnelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Kegler,
Yes.
Dr. Bowen,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Lombardo,
yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Reed,
Yes.
Mrs. Roan,
Yes.
Mr. Russell.
John?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, Gloucester County School Boards, there are no meetings set up for that. Caroline, New Jersey School Boards.
Nothing to report.
All right, Christian, Home and School.
Yes, I have two updates from Katie. The first is that there's a new Logan Township Home and School League Facebook page. The old page has been deactivated, and they're going to be posting all the updates on how we can support, how the public can support the school through that page. So it's important to like and follow that page. And then the fall fundraiser is the Spirit Wear, and that store has gone live, and email is going to be going out soon. All our orders are going to be taken online, and they're going to be shipped directly to your house. They have new items such as masks, long sleeve t-shirts, and performance t-shirts, and the store will close on December 6th.
All right, thanks, Kristen.
Yep.
Kingsway, our meeting is tomorrow night. I looked at the agenda as of today. There's nothing on there that's earth-shattering. I suspect we'll be talking about whether Kingsway will stay closed for a while, further beyond Thanksgiving, but that'll probably be discussed tomorrow. And for some background information, the reason Dr. Lavender closed the school is they had over 40 students and one staff member test positive. And they had 300 plus students and 25 staff members who were in quarantine protocol as of last week. And contact tracing is not going well. People aren't really cooperating at all with giving out information about who attended what. There was a large pasta party. There was one of the sports teams had a big sleepover. Again, they're not getting much cooperation from the parents on that. So. Anything comes up on Kingsway, I'll let everybody else know after tomorrow night's meeting. Any other new business? Any old business? All right, hearing none, we need a motion to adjourn.
I move that.
I move.
That was Kim and Brian.
Kim and Brian, yes. Thank you all. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, then we are adjourned for tonight, and I thank you all for coming, and thank the public for their questions, and thank you for attending. And good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanksgiving.
And
And thank
yeah, be safe, celebrate alone.
Well, that's good too.
Thank you,
Take care,
Administrator.
everyone.
Thank you,
Good night.
Administrators, for being here tonight.